13 Reasons Why. Honestly, I should just stop there, but we're not going to. We're going to delve into this. I don't need to spend this non-spoil section selling anybody on 13 Reasons Why or telling anybody what it is, because everybody in the world knows what this is. And if you don't, you've been living under a rock. So, yeah, we're talking about 13 Reasons Why. Buckle up for that conversation, because it's going to be a long one. And I'm going to talk about the book and the TV show and compare the two, even though you can't really compare the two, because in my mind, they're two completely different things. The book is one thing, and the TV show's, loosely based on the book, but we're going to compare them anyways. It's going to be fine. And I want to, warn everybody, after the intro and talking about the spoilery section, I'm going to talk about all of the things that happen in 13 Reasons Why. So if something from the book or the TV show triggered you, it's possible that that topic is going to come up again in this episode. So just kind of be warned that those things are going to happen, and I don't want to lead anybody into this and just there are triggering topics, just like the show has trigger warnings. Not very good ones, but it has them. This is my trigger warning to people, we are going to talk about this topic, so maybe this episode isn't right for you if the show triggered you in a bad way. Books, TV, music, and movies. All things that make a big impact on everyone. I'm constantly gushing about my latest read to anyone who will listen, so I figured I'd turn my rambling into something coherent that people might actually listen to, which means no tuning out halfway through. I'm Maya Ghosh, and this is my take. So I'm going to start off by talking about the book, and then after we talk about the book, we're going to look at each season of the TV show separately. So beginning with the book was good. The book was good. It was so chill. It was literally just Clay. He got the tapes one night. He found the Walkman or whatever he used to listen to them. He got on his bike. He was riding around town, listening to the tapes. Then at the end of the book, it was him passing the tapes along, and it had spanned one night, and it was just Clay, and it was great. And it allowed the book to tackle very intense, difficult issues like suicide and sexual abuse and sexual assault and rape and all of that are in the book. It tackled those topics without being this super triggering, super crazy mess. It just allowed readers to really hone in on, this is Hannah's story, and we're just here to be observers to Hannah's story and to learn about, suicide in high schools and how that impacts the community and impacts the world that we're living in, and then move on from it and then have conversations that we need to have outside of it and not be super triggered and super freaked out about it. The book was such an accessible format because there wasn't this heightened, intense thing that we get when we watch TV, but also some books do get that heightened, intense, crazy, but it wasn't that heightened, intense, crazy. It was chill but good. It allowed us to see Hannah's story, and I appreciated that, and I loved the book. And the book would have been the perfect movie because it was so chill, and it was literally just Clay riding around, listening to the tapes, and then passing them on. The one time where I don't think a book needed the depth that a TV show gives to its characters and its storyline and stuff, and it could have been a perfect movie, they turn the book into a TV show. It made no sense. And even if it had to have been a TV show, it could have just been hey, every episode is a tape, right? And we're just gonna have Clay, every episode we're gonna start with Clay biking to some new spot, and then we're all gonna do flashbacks so we can cast all the other characters, but it's literally just gonna be Clay biking around, and every episode's gonna start with a timestamp 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and we move on through a night. I love the book, and I have nothing but good things to say about the book. So I feel really sad because the book had such potential to be like a good thing, and then it just became what 13 Reasons Why is now. And like, the book deserved better, I think. And maybe I should reread the book and do a separate episode just on the book, because I think the book deserves more credit and to be heard more and talked about more, because I can no longer separate the book from the TV show. Like, 13 Reasons Why, the TV show, took over the legacy of the book and is like now just I wish they had done better with this TV show, but they didn't. So now we're going to talk about it, starting with season 1. Obviously this is the season that's closest to the book, but like the way they changed it, they made the conscious decision. They were like, look, we are not going to stick with this chill book plotline. We are going to make this intense and crazy and drag it out for another 3 seasons after this because we want our money. And I hated that. Like, why did they have to do it? Like, it just, like, I wanted the book to have its justice and, like, do it good, but I don't know. Like, it was this huge thing when it came out, and I remember all of my friends and I were super excited, and we were freshmen in high school, and a bunch of us had just read the book, and we were like, oh my god, we're so excited for this TV show, and then all of the fallout that came with that. Like, there was the whole thing about Hannah's suicide and how they depicted it and not having enough trigger warnings, and there was copycats of, like, leaving tapes behind after committing suicide. Like, I remember reading an article about somebody in prison in South America, I think, who committed suicide but had left behind tapes because they saw it on 13 Reasons Why and stuff. And obviously, that's not something they can control. Like, I am not informed enough to speak on, like, copycat suicides and all of that stuff. Like, I don't have enough information. I just wanted to make the point in this podcast that there was issues with season 1 and how they approached it, and there was definitely fallout with the TV show, and like that's tainted my picture of season 1, because now all I think about is like how badly they kind of messed up and stuff. And yes, it was the season that stuck closest to the book's plotline and that it had a similar plotline and stuff, but also it was like didn't and caused a lot of problems. So that's what I remember season 1 from. I did not, I have to say, go back and either reread the book or rewatch the first 3 seasons doing this. The 4th season came out a couple days ago, watched that, finished it, and now I'm doing this podcast based on, like, my recollection of stuff. So my recollection of season 1 is very fuzzy because it came out 4 years ago, but I'm just kind of talking about what I remember and stuff. And, like, I think the bigger issue is that, like, the message and stuff the TV show sends, which I'm gonna get to at the end of this after I talk through the seasons. So I don't think it's imperative that I have, like, a detailed list of everything that happened in season 1 or whatever, right? Like, my biggest memory of season 1 is that it wasn't like the book and that it did cause problems, that they didn't take into consideration all of this stuff. So that's where I'm leaving season 1. Season 2 focused on a trial. Yay. I mean, season 2 was weird because it was this kind of, like, filler. Like, yes, the trial needed to happen, and they needed to, like, they were at this weird place of they had to wrap up so much shit from season 1, but also intro, like, a weird start to season 3 to keep people hooked. So it's just that weird middle filler season that was, like, okay, sure, it had to be there, but it wasn't, like, my favorite. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite season from 13 Reasons Why. They were all kind of just there. Then I just watched them to watch them and to be in the know about them. But yeah, there was, like, weird parts of season 2. Like, I remember Tony had a very weird, very, like, too close relationship with Mrs. Baker. Like, it was strange that she was spending so much time with a high school student. And Mrs. Baker had that other mom who had lost a child that lived with her that then cleaned off the dress that Mrs. Baker had found Hannah in, and that caused, like, a weird tailspin. And Chloe fucking lied on the stand to protect Bryce. And there was that one character named Nina. I didn't remember this. I had to look up her name. But she was in it for, like, this season, and she was kind of involved in, like, the Polaroid shit, but then she just up and disappeared. And there was the Polaroids, which we got no closure on. They introduced this whole thing about the clubhouse and the Polaroids and stuff, and then they got burned, and nothing ever came of it. Like, that plot line was dropped after Tyler showed up with his guns at school. Which, speaking of Tyler, like, what Monty did to him. Again, we're bringing back that topic, and we're bringing back that, I just, like, those are the two scenes in the show I could not watch. I could not watch Hannah's suicide scene, and I could not watch Tyler get raped by Monty. Like, I felt so bad for him. Like, fuck Monty. Tyler did not deserve that, and, like, then it caused him to spiral and bring guns to school, and then Clay, has to be the hero and runs out into the street and stops him, which I was very happy that Clay stopped him. But also, Clay stopping him started this whole theme of kids have to take care of all of the shit that kids shouldn't have to take care of, which we will talk about later. And so it just, like I said, season 2 was this weird filler of we had to wrap up all the stuff, and Bryce went on trial, which fuck him for having rich lawyers and white privilege and getting off and not having any consequences for all of his actions. And, like, I can't blame Chloe. Yes, I'm mad that Chloe lied on the stand, but that is her story. Like, that is her deal and her issue, and if she's not comfortable with talking about it, she's not comfortable, right? But fuck Bryce for getting off. Like, and the way that they presented it, like, I have this vivid memory of, like, the scene where his lawyers are like, oh, put on the glasses because we did testing or whatever, and you look more trustworthy and more innocent with your glasses. Like, that's the kind of shit that, like, if Bryce was black, he would not have. He would go away for life for this shit. But no, he's white, so he's gonna get off. Fuck him. Like, it was weird. It was a mix of wrapping up loose ends from season 1, but also introing season 3. Like, they could have ended it at season 1. Very well could have done a 1-season show, whatever. Then they could have ended it at season 2 and wrapped up and given us closure with the trial and been done. But they decided to drag it out and be like, no, we're going to have a season 3 and a season 4 and just drag this on much longer than it needs to be dragged on. Because in season 2, I feel like a lot of my friends and I were like, yes, we're still going to watch season 2, even though it's different from the book. We are interested in seeing what happens to everybody. We are interested in seeing what this trial is. But then after that, season 3, like, they drew everybody in to watch season 3 because they ended with, like, Tyler and Clay standing in the middle of the street. And what's going to happen? Is Tyler going to shoot Clay and go in and shoot up the school? We don't know. But season 3 was bad. It kept getting progressively worse, I'm pretty sure. Like, season 1 was at least, like, based on the book, and, like, then it got worse. It got worse as it went on. The two things I did like from season 2 were Zach and Hannah in the season dating, and, like, the flashback to them being all in love and stuff. That was really cute. And Clay's parents adopting Justin. Like, Clay and Justin being brothers is what I was holding on to through the show. Like, after season 2, I was like, I want to watch season 3 just because I want to see Clay and Justin and, like, that dynamic and them being brothers and all that stuff. And, like, that was a bright light in the dark sea that is this show. And so I was very happy that happened. So then, moving into season 3, it becomes a murder mystery, which, like, I'm all for murder mysteries, right? Like, I love BuzzFeed Unsolved, I love crime shows, but it just felt weird and forced in this show that takes on so many hot button issues and is, like, about, it started off with a girl committing suicide and leaving tapes about why she committed suicide, and now we're gonna turn it into a murder mystery. It just felt forced and didn't feel like it fit very well with the theme of this show and what they were going for. And, like, it was weird, because, like, I was not sad that Bryce died, right? Like, I'm not saying people deserve to die, but of all the people on that show, Bryce deserved to die the most. So, like, there was no love lost that he died. And yes, was I kind of interested in knowing who killed him? Yeah, but did I really care at the end? No. And then the fact that Alex killed him, it was like, it just felt weird to me. Like, it made sense. He's hurt so many people that Alex loves and all that stuff, and it gives Alex like a bigger plot point. But also, it was just weird. And like then his dad covers it up, and they pin it on Monty, which like I don't know how I feel about them pinning it on Monty, because on one hand, it gives them this nice story to tell, and they're like, okay, Monty killed Bryce, now Monty died in jail, it's all good. But also, Monty did not deserve to go to jail for that. He deserved to go to jail. He just didn't deserve to go to jail for Bryce's murder, which he didn't commit. But, like, it gives them this nice, convenient out, so I guess I appreciate that. And, like, I don't know, season 3 threw a lot at us because they tried to give us a Bryce redemption arc, which I didn't really appreciate, because I'm not saying people can't change. I'm a firm believer people can change given enough time, given enough space, given enough, like, mostly time, right? Like, had they dragged the show out for, like, 10 seasons or some shit, like, thank God it ended at season 4, but had they dragged it out for a really long time, and we saw Bryce in his, like, 20s after college and going to therapy and all that stuff, and he had been going to therapy since, you know, after the trial, and he was finally making breakthroughs, and it had been, like, a couple years time span, then I'd be like, okay, given a couple years, given, you know, leaving Evergreen and relocating and starting a new life, I feel like, yes, you can change. But you can't just make some shift in, like, 2 months and be like, oh, I'm suddenly better now, and I'm suddenly, like, yes, you can try to be a good person and stuff, but I feel like there needed to be more time for any of us to conceivably be like, yes, okay, I appreciate, like, this change and Bryce, and I can understand the redemption arc. And, like, and I hated that they used Ani to try and increase that Bryce redemption arc. Like, season 3, I didn't like Ani. Like, because if I was a new girl, I would have run far, far away from all of this bullshit that was going on. And I would have been like, why are you all so weird? I'm just going to stay to myself over in this corner and not be involved in this murder mystery and all of that shit. But she just runs straight into it, and then she's our narrator, which I didn't like her as a narrator, and I didn't like that so much of the story revolved around her, and she inserted herself in everything, and that she slept with Bryce, and that she was like, oh, Bryce is good, and I don't care that he raped these girls, and like, I didn't like her season 3. My opinions changed season 4, but I didn't like her in season 3. And also, in season 3, we had Alex on steroids, which gave us another out to the Bryce redemption arc, because Bryce got Alex's steroids for half the price that he did at this gym. Like, congratulations, Bryce, you're a great person for being a cheaper drug dealer. And Justin and Jess were back together in this, like, really weird relationship. And speaking of them getting back together, that part where Ani was like, oh my god, Jess is sleeping with Bryce. Like, why did that have to be a thing that crossed their mind? Like, why? Like, it made no sense. I didn't understand it. No. We got the formation of HO, which I kind of loved, but I also kind of hated when that girl, I don't remember her name, the girl with the really short hair, was like, kind of bullying Tyler and being mean about he couldn't have a voice because he was an actual survivor when he really was, but she didn't know that, which she came around at the end. But I liked that we had HO and we had, like, this formation of, like, we're gonna take a stand and do something about rape culture at our school and all of that, so I appreciated that. And then we had Winston and Monty, which, like, I don't know, Winston's not my favorite, but I felt bad for him. You know, like, he knew Monty in a different way than everybody else, and, like, I understand where Winston is coming from, because if I knew for sure that somebody went away for something they didn't do, and I had a connection to them, I would probably act like Winston, and I can't blame him for acting like that. And it makes me feel worse for Monty when he's dealing with so much, and, like, his sexuality and exploring it, and doesn't know what to do and isn't accepted at home, and I hate all of that, but it doesn't give him permission to act like an asshole and to do what he did to Tyler. So it's just this weird mixed up, like, people are complicated in this show, which I guess is true because people are complicated in real life, but, you know. And then, of course, we end on another big cliffhanger that draws everybody into the next season because they found the guns in the lake, which that didn't even turn out to be a huge thing, except that Tyler was a police informant, which is not really legal. I can't imagine any situation in which the police would actually use an 18-year-old high school senior to be a police informant, but it's fine. That's a season 4 thing. The one thing I liked in season 3 was that we got more of Clay and Justin being brothers, and, they got their own little section of the house to live in together, and I liked that. And I liked that we got Tyler's recovery, and I liked that we really did see a growth in Tyler, and that things can get better, and you can move on from it, and you can rebuild yourself, and you can survive these things. So I liked that we got that recovery aspect, which is not something we got in season 4, which, speaking of season 4, was a fucking shit show. Was a fucking shit show. I was literally in season 4, A, because I wanted answers. No, not A, because I wanted answers. A, because it would make a good podcast episode to talk about all of it. B, because I wanted answers. And C, because I liked Zach and the Justin and Clay dynamic. But Zach obviously is, spiraling out of control, constantly drunk, almost rapes his escort of a prom date. And then Justin fucking dies. This was the one thing I couldn't forgive the show for. And, they made him relapse a ton, and every time he had to work hard to get better, and he was doing so much better, and nobody gave him credit for doing so much better. And then they're still going to send the message that no matter how hard you work, you can't outrun this problem, you can't survive addiction, and you're just going to fucking die anyway, so don't even try. Justin was this beacon of hope, and I was like, he's struggled so much, and they made him relapse, but he's doing so much better. And when he came home from rehab, he looked so good, and he was so zen, and I was so happy for him. And then he just fucking dies. And the way he dies too, because I've heard, and a couple YouTube videos I watched about the end of season 4 and stuff, that it was a really bad portrayal of what someone with HIV and AIDS goes through. So I wish they wouldn't have I wish Justin wouldn't have died anyways. But if Justin had to die, why couldn't they have done it properly? Why couldn't they have introduced it earlier in the season and shown him fighting it and shown him, shown it progressing slowly and stuff, and not just been hey, last episode, you're gonna have HIV AIDS and you're gonna die within the span of 30 minutes. It just didn't feel like they did justice to the topic, which is a running theme in the show. But I was mad about that, and I was mad because he was going to Occidental, which is where I'm going to school next year, and I was very happy that he was going to Oxy, and I was like, yes, we love this, and then he doesn't fucking get to go. So, there's that. And then there's all of the insane shit that happens this season, Clay's disassociations, which felt really weird and rushed to me. The way they suddenly were oh my god, Clay, you've been disassociating this whole time. I was okay, I feel like people who struggle with disassociating to this point that they're doing stuff that they don't even understand, whatever, it's that progressed of this mental illness, I feel like there's a lot bigger of a process and a lot longer, and I feel like it's a lot harder to understand it. It just felt really rushed the way they revealed it, and I didn't appreciate that. Tyler, as I said, being a police informant, which I feel would never happen in real life. Jess, cheating on Justin and Diego with each other, and just being with Diego, and that being, the spark of hope at the end, being hey, maybe I'm gonna get with Diego later. The fucking active shooter drill, which, fuck Principal Bolin. From the bottom of my heart, fuck you, Principal Bolin, for that active shooter drill. I would literally drop out of school if that happened at my school. I understand there is a need for drills that teaches how to lock a classroom down, that teaches to be quiet, that teaches to sit in the dark, and, what's going to happen if this shit happens, right? Because it's a very real possibility that that can happen to somebody. But you don't get the police to fire blanks and make kids think it's a real fucking thing. The amount of trauma that those kids had to have gone through, even though they didn't go through a real school shooting, they went through the emotions of going through a real school shooting. Fuck you, Bolin. How do you think that's keeping anybody fucking safe? And then he gets no repercussions for it. That's what I hate. and I'm sure I'll talk about this later too, nobody gets any repercussions from it, but especially Bolin. Like, I want to say his name was Porter, the counselor from the first season, who doesn't take Hannah's claim seriously about being raped by Bryce. He gets fired once they find out that he didn't take Hannah's claim seriously about being raped by Bryce. But Bolin causes mass trauma and doesn't get any repercussions? Like, fuck him. Which then takes me to the riot, which I feel like if that had happened to me, I would fucking walk out of school too. Like, the riot was fine, and the riot was the riot. And then there's all the parents conspiring to spy on all of their kids, which, like, I don't... Like, all of the parents are fucking outraged about their kids being secretive, but none of the parents are fucking outraged about the fact that the principal had an active shooter drill that caused real trauma, like real lasting trauma. And none of the fucking parents, like, the whole fallout from the active shooter drill is the riot, and then the riot happens, and then they're like, oh, you can't go to prom. And they're like concerned about prom and the riot when they should be concerned about why the riot started, and that's because the administration fucking sucks. Then there's the reunion where they get together and they bury the tapes, and they're like, by the way, anybody's going through bullshit, like, text Gordon Lightfoot to the group chat. Which, like, okay, sure, have your cute frenzy moment. And then there's the whole football team taking us into, like, a Pretty Little Liars moment when they're, like, calling Clay and, like, ordering him around to do stuff and all of this, like... I wrote down in my notes while watching season 4, I was like, why are we in Pretty Little Liars right now? Like, it literally was that, and they ripped off that, and they were like, oh, da-da-da-da, whatever, do this, do that, otherwise we're gonna release proof that Monty was innocent and all that. Like, it was bad. It didn't need to be in this show. They already have so much going on. You don't need to copy Pretty Little Liars. We introduced Estella, who could have been a major player, and we could have seen, like, her and Winston band together and, like, take down all of our characters and be like, look, no, fuck you, Monty was framed, and we're going to prove it, and all of this stuff. But instead, Estella was just, like, this little side character that ended up only being there because she was dating Tyler, and they handed off H.O. to her. I was just like, why? Like, she could have been so big. So either make her big and make her a prominent character, or don't have her at all. Like, the show would have been exactly the same without her, given how little she did. And it just was like a fucking mess this season. Like, literally everybody was depressed. Nothing good came out of it. Like, it just was crazy. Actually, okay, speaking of good things, things that I liked in this show. They're very minimal, but there were a few. Tony going to college and getting a scholarship. I appreciated that. I loved that. I loved that he did that. I love that, school was always this issue for Tony. In season 3, we see him ditching a ton of school to work at his dad's body shop because that's where he needs to be and stuff. And I like that we finally see, like, yes, things can happen. He can go to school. It can work out. I liked that Ani and Jess were friends. Like, my opinion on Ani changed a little bit this season. Like, I liked her more. She was good. I appreciated her. I did still like that she was gone for 5 episodes because she was still a little annoying. And I like the, like, Zach, Alex, Charlie friendship. And I like Alex and Charlie. They were super cute together. So, yeah, that's my, like, opinions on season 4 and all of the seasons. And now we're going to talk about, like, the message of the show and, like, yeah, the message of the show is what I'm trying to get at. So, to start off with, the show tries to tackle every hot button topic there ever is. Like, I had to write an argumentative essay about a controversial issue one year in school, and all of us were, like, looking up controversial issue lists and, like, trying to get ideas and stuff. And I swear, the writers of 13 Reasons Why looked up the same list that we looked up and just picked everyone off of it and threw it into the script. And we're like, we're going to tackle this and this and this and this and this and this. Like, these were just some that I could remember happening from my recollection of the show. Like, not going back and rewatching everything, just after watching season 4, writing down a list of issues that they issues that they cover. Suicide, rape and sexual assault, addiction, adoption, kind of, teenage pregnancy and abortion, school shootings, overbearing police, ICE deportations, LGBTQ characters, HIV and AIDS, white privilege in the court system, depression, anxiety, bullying, over-policing, and, like, protesting that comes with that. Like, all they need to do is throw in an eating disorder, and I'm pretty sure they would have literally covered every single topic that high schoolers deal with ever. I'm not saying that all of these things don't happen, and I'm not saying that multiple of these things don't happen in the same school. I'm sure you could pick any school in the United States and show them this list, and I'm sure they could hit at least 5 points, right? Like, that have come up in their school. And a lot of things have happened in my own life, and they happen to teens and communities everywhere. And I know that it's important to talk about them, and I know that usually people can see media as a way to start conversations. It's just, the show bit off more than they can chew to try and handle every single one of these issues, right? Like just because Tony's parents got deported in, like, season 2, yeah, season 2 probably. Like, just because that one scene was in there does not mean you're going to start mass debate about ICE and deportations and all of that stuff. Like, it's not going to happen. That's not going to be what's the result of that. It was not a prominent enough scene to spark these debates. And so I feel like it would have been better had they just picked 3 issues, right? Like, the book deals with kind of bullying, sexual harassment and rape, and suicide. Pick those as your main 3 issues, like an essay, right? Have 3 main points that you're going to make and have 3 body paragraphs and cover those topics comprehensively. Give us a real, very good, very well-researched take on what is going on. Don't just throw in every single issue under the sun to try and make yourself seem like, oh, we're progressive and we're addressing every single issue. You're not addressing every single issue if you don't do it correctly. Like, Justin's deal with HIV and AIDS, if it's not a good representation of what somebody's going through, and there are people out there, like, even me, I don't really know, like, a good idea of how that truly affects people. And I understand now that it's more treatable than it was, and it was this, like, pandemic of cases before. But if my only understanding came from what I saw Justin deal with, I would assume it was, like, completely different than what it actually is. And had I not gone out and, like, watched videos about the ending of the show and stuff, I wouldn't have been better educated on it. So they're not doing justice to any of these topics just by throwing them in there to throw them in there. And so it's like, why? Like, why do they feel like they need to half-ass every single hot-button issue to ever exist? Like, you don't need to. Like, another example would be, like, the over-policing and the, like, police unfairly target, minority communities, and they make up more of our prison population, all that stuff. Like, they tried to introduce that issue when the SROs at school, like, we see them affecting Tony and Diego, who are Latino, but it never goes deeper. Like, we see Tony get stopped by that one officer, but then the officer turns out to be, like, giving him a better opportunity for life, so it's, like, so weird. And then we see Diego and Justin get into a fight, and the police officer only, like, tries to talk to Diego and tries to arrest Diego and stuff, like, but they never go deeper about it. They just kind of ponder that issue and then don't do anything else. They're just like, hey, think about this, see what's happening, but they don't delve deeper into that issue. They, like, for a show that prides itself on taking on difficult topics, you're not taking on difficult topics well enough to pride yourself on taking on difficult topics. You can't just throw it in there and be like, yep, we covered that, let's move on. Like, I wish they would have done it better. I wish if they are actually a show that wants to take on difficult topics, they would have done it in a more comprehensive way, and they would have actually addressed it and actually, like, been better with it. But they're just gonna half-ass their way through it, and so I didn't appreciate that about the show. And then, like I said, when I was talking about season 1, they got into so much trouble about not warning people, and there was a lot of talk about, like, copycat suicides with tapes and stuff, and like I said, I don't have a true informed opinion on this. I can't really speak to what it is, but it's still like, with a show that had so much money behind it and so much backing behind it, like Selena Gomez was involved in the project for a little bit, like, you would think they would have the resources to actually do their work and fact check everything and make sure they weren't gonna cause, like, copycat suicides, or weren't gonna, like, fall into that trap of, like, stuff. So I don't know, it just, like, it, like, didn't seem to send great messages, I think is what I'm trying to get at. Like, killing Justin, you know, the pinnacle of, like, he was their addict character, right? And I know addiction is a lifelong struggle, and they could have shown that addiction was a lifelong struggle, and they did, in the fact that he relapsed multiple times, and he went to rehab, and he got better, and stuff, but then they just kill him, so you're sending the message that, like, oh, you can't get better, like, just fuck you and die, and, like, they make it seem like you can't trust adults at all, and I understand that there is this big culture of teens, you know, we go about life on our own, and we think we're the first people to only have these struggles, and so we don't trust adults, and I understand that, and that comes across plenty clear in every TV show to ever exist, but this TV show takes it to an extreme. Like, Clay's constantly talking about, the question is, will you survive high school? And yes, that is a question to address when you're looking at school shootings and you're looking at suicide, but it also, like, the way it comes across feels like high school is this war, like, every day you're going to war, and it's not a safe environment, and I understand, not everybody is privileged enough to go to a high school where they feel safe, and not everybody is privileged enough to not feel like high school is this insane thing, but I also feel like they're not doing justice to the fact that, like, it's not actually that crazy. Like, it's hard, because I have to check my privilege and understand that I can't speak for everybody, right? I know that, and my high school experience is very different than what 13 Reasons Why high school is. That doesn't mean that there aren't schools like 13 Reasons Why, like On the Come Up, the book by Angie Thomas, which I love and need to do an episode on. Like, similar things happen to, you know, like with the policing and stuff at the schools, but it feels like the message of the show was, don't go to adults for help, and you have to take care of all of this shit on your own, but that's not true. Like, you don't get to go around, like, there were so many instances where, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that it makes it seem like kids have to do it all on their own. Like, that's what it makes it seem like with Tony, technically, with Tony and Clay dealing with Tyler, and yes, he went to Dr. Singh and got help through that, but she didn't know what he did and stuff. Like, all of this stuff, it makes it feel like you have to take the whole entire world on your shoulders when you really don't, and maybe that's why they had Clay have so much of a mental breakdown when he, you know, in season 4, because he does take the whole world on their shoulders, and that was their warning, be like, don't take the whole world on your shoulders. It was a lot, and they kind of sent the message that you get to go around murdering people and having no consequences, and you get to go around causing high school kids insane trauma and get no consequences, and, like, I don't think they did the book justice. I think the book does a pretty good job of taking on these difficult topics and opening up conversations for people and allowing people to, like, have these topics as accessible. And I think that the TV show didn't. The TV show was just like, we're gonna try and throw everything under there. And, like, had it not been for the fact that I was making a podcast episode, I would not have watched season 4. And that's where I'm gonna leave this. I don't know. Take what you will out of what I've said about the message of the TV show. It was a clusterfuck of words. I'm well aware of that. But I feel like I needed to get out there. I needed to at least try and articulate what I meant. So, to wrap up, like, I understand that whole, like, message of the TV show was most of my wrap-up. But we were going to end with some shout-outs for minor characters that were amazing and non-problematic and who I loved. Starting with Caleb, Tony's boyfriend, who is smart, who's, like, the one and only smart and mature adult in this show, who helps Tony make smart and mature decisions and make sure he goes to college and make sure that he is going to high school and make sure that he's being a kid, and I love and appreciate Caleb for that. And speaking of people in Tony's life that I love, Javi, who we never actually meet, but he's literally, like, season 3, every single episode that sees Tony at the shop, he goes, Javi, can you watch the shop? I have to do something. Which we always know Javi's going to be there to watch the shop. So I appreciate that. The football coach in season 3 and season 4, like, he helps Justin with AA meetings and kind of being a little bit of a sponsor for him. He gets Zach a job, which we appreciate. And he's just another smart and good adult in this show that is crazy. And finally, Charlie, because he wasn't really involved in everything, yet somehow he knows everything, and he's so cute when he's with Alex, and so I love him for that. And so yeah, those are my shout-outs. I don't even know with this show, like, the book was great, and I feel bad that the book wasn't done justice, but also this show was a big part of my high school experience because I was a freshman when season 1 came out. I'm a senior when season 4 came out. Like, it was a pretty big thing that was, like, talked about, and people were discussing it, and it was, like, a representation of high school, and I watched it as I was going through high school and stuff. So, like, it definitely was part of my high school experience, but I'm never going to rewatch it. I might reread the book. I think I need to reread the book and, like, reclaim my image of 13 Reasons Why, but I'm never going to rewatch the show. So, yeah, I have been Maya Gush, and this has been my take on both the book and the TV show 13 Reasons Why. Thanks for listening.